Now that we have a driver available, we need to define a data source to connect our EAP server to the database via the driver. To do this, we define a data source in our profile, either in standalone.xml or domain.xml. Data sources are part of the data source subsystem, and as noted, are defined at the profile level. This means that a data source can be easily shared among all servers, which use that profile in domain mode. In standalone mode, the data source which is defined can only be used by that single server. You can define multiple data sources in the data source subsystem. Both standard and XA data sources are configurable. An XA data source will use distributed transactions. This is required in cases where there are multiple resources involved in committing persistence updates, so that the data will remain in a consistent state, even in cases of rollbacks. We will discuss in more detail the XA data source subsystem in a future video. Each data source must have a unique JNDI name, and the name should start with Java : or Java : JBoss. If you deployed your driver as a jar, you may need to use the driver class element to define the class name of the driver to be used. Type 4 drivers and modules do not need this, however, and can simply be defined with the driver tag. The two URL tags shown here are really beyond the scope of this course. Please consult the documentation for any details on what these are used for. You may set a SQL statement to be executed whenever a new connection is created using the new connection SQL tag here. If the statement fails, then the connection will not be added to the pool. This can be very useful in ensuring your database is functional. The pool tag has a number of children to support configuring your pool, including a min and max pool size, and a prefill tag which will attempt to fill the connection pool when it is initially created by the server. We'll see an example of these in a future video. The validation portion of the data source configuration adds another layer of insurance to your database connection pool by executing a SQL statement every time a connection is retrieved from the pool by an application. This can help ensure that a database connection hasn't been disconnected by the database itself. You may also set up a background check that can run parallel to the validation checks. By using the validation portion and the SQL statement for new connection to SQL, you can ensure that your database is pretty much constantly running and that you're not going to have any issues with your application connecting to the database without your knowledge. Timeouts can be used in a variety of ways. Please take a look at the documentation again for details on these. We haven't gotten into a lot of detail in this course on timeouts. Finally, the statement section can be used to build prepared statement caches for use in improving the performance of applications which leverage prepared statements. The track statements tag can also be used to close database connections and result sets which are not explicitly closed by the application when a connection is returned to the connection pool. In a later video, we will examine some few more examples of database connection setups.